The email from the doctor's office has been sitting completely unopened in his personal inbox for 6 full days now. He knows exactly and precisely what it probably contains. The results from a routine blood test he took nearly 2 full weeks ago now. He is genuinely not busy at all. He has certainly had plenty of free time to simply open it. And yet, every single time his cursor happens to hover directly over that specific unopened message, something deep inside him quietly pulls his own hand away instead. This is genuinely not laziness, and it is certainly not simple forgetfulness either. Psychologists and behavioral economists have a specific, well-documented technical name for this exact pattern, and it clearly explains a genuinely surprising amount of otherwise puzzling, ordinary human avoidance behavior. It is called the Ostrich Effect, a specific term borrowed directly from the widespread, though scientifically inaccurate, popular myth that ostriches supposedly bury their heads in the sand whenever danger approaches near. The actual behavioral phenomenon was first formally documented and named in a landmark 2006 study conducted by economists Dan Galai and Ostrich Sade, who noticed something genuinely curious happening among ordinary financial investors. During periods when the overall stock market was performing poorly, investors would measurably check their portfolio balances considerably less often than usual. During periods when the market was performing well, however, those exact same investors would suddenly check their balances considerably more frequently, seemingly eager to witness good financial news in real time. Here is what makes this pattern genuinely fascinating from a psychological standpoint. The underlying financial risk itself had not actually changed at all in either direction. The investors' money remained equally exposed to real market risk regardless of whether they were actively checking it or deliberately avoiding it. What had clearly changed instead was each person's willingness to consciously confront potentially unpleasant, emotionally uncomfortable information. Checking a declining, worrisome balance forces a person to directly confront real financial loss, and that specific act of confrontation itself, entirely independent of the actual underlying financial outcome, carries a genuine, measurable emotional cost that many people would strongly prefer to postpone or entirely avoid altogether. Researchers have since found this exact same avoidance pattern extending well beyond simple financial behavior into a genuinely wide range of other everyday life domains. People are measurably less likely to open work-related emails from a supervisor immediately following a performance review they privately suspect went poorly. People are less likely to step confidently onto a bathroom scale during periods when they already strongly suspect they have recently gained noticeable weight. People frequently and repeatedly delay important, potentially significant medical screenings and routine checkups, specifically out of a deep, largely unconscious fear of receiving genuinely bad, life-altering news. Consider a fairly common example involving romantic relationships. Someone who privately suspects, deep down, that their partner may be growing genuinely distant or emotionally unhappy will often deliberately avoid initiating a direct, honest conversation about it for weeks, sometimes even for many months at a stretch. They continue quietly noticing small, telling warning signs, a shorter reply here, a canceled plan there, without ever consciously naming the pattern out loud to themselves or to their partner. As long as the difficult conversation itself remains safely unopened, the relationship can technically continue existing in a comfortable, protective state of ambiguous, unconfirmed uncertainty, rather than confronting a painful truth that direct, honest conversation might otherwise force clearly and unavoidably into the open. The underlying psychological mechanism driving this widespread pattern connects closely to a well-established concept economists and psychologists both refer to as loss aversion, our brain's natural, deeply ingrained tendency to experience the emotional pain of a clear loss considerably more intensely than the equivalent emotional pleasure of an equally sized gain. Confirming a genuine loss, whether it is a specific loss of money, of health, of physical status, or even of a valued relationship, requires the brain to fully and consciously process that painful loss all at once, in a single, concentrated moment. Remaining deliberately uncertain, by clear contrast, allows a person to comfortably continue holding on to a small, protective sliver of genuine hope, even when the objective underlying evidence quietly and increasingly suggests that hope is likely misplaced or unfounded. There is also a well-documented, deeply ironic paradox, clearly built directly into this specific avoidance pattern. The very act of avoiding potentially difficult, uncomfortable information does not actually make the underlying problem itself disappear or resolve in any way. It simply and reliably delays the moment of eventual confrontation, while frequently allowing the actual underlying situation to quietly and considerably worsen in the meantime. An unopened medical test result does not stop a genuine health condition from progressing further. A carefully unchecked bank balance does not stop mounting real financial debt from steadily accumulating additional interest charges. In many well-documented cases, the deliberate avoidance itself measurably increases the total eventual cost of finally, unavoidably confronting the exact same underlying problem later on. This particular avoidance pattern also carries a genuinely significant, measurable psychological cost of its own, entirely separate and distinct from whatever the original underlying problem actually was in the first place. Unresolved uncertainty itself has been consistently shown across numerous separate studies to generate persistent, low-grade background anxiety, often considerably more distressing and exhausting over time than simply directly knowing a clearly difficult but concrete truth. The human brain genuinely dislikes prolonged ambiguity almost as much as it dislikes confirmed, definite bad news, and the ostrich effect essentially and unfortunately trades one specific, familiar form of ongoing discomfort for another, often without the avoiding person ever consciously and fully realizing that particular trade has actually taken place. This trade-off has been documented directly in clinical research on health anxiety and general everyday worry. People who consistently and deliberately avoid confirming a specific feared outcome often report noticeably higher overall baseline stress levels than people who choose to directly confront the exact same category of feared information early and head-on. The mind, quite literally, keeps the entire underlying threat actively open and unresolved in the background, continuing to expend real, measurable mental energy, managing it indefinitely, precisely because it has never actually been allowed to reach any kind of clear, definite resolution. So how can a person actually begin working through this deeply ingrained, largely automatic avoidance pattern in real, practical terms? Researchers studying behavioral change consistently recommend deliberately and consciously lowering the immediate emotional stakes surrounding the specific moment of confrontation itself. Rather than framing a specific difficult action, like opening that unread medical email, as a single, high-stakes, all-or-nothing moment of truth, it genuinely helps to consciously reframe it instead as simply gathering additional useful information, regardless of what that particular information eventually turns out to actually be. Scheduling a firm, specific, predetermined time to directly confront the avoided information, rather than vaguely waiting for some elusive, more emotionally comfortable moment that may realistically never actually arrive on its own, has also been shown to meaningfully and measurably increase genuine follow-through in most documented cases. Understanding the ostrich effect will not instantly make confronting difficult, uncomfortable news feel genuinely easy or emotionally painless. Some information is, quite honestly, still genuinely difficult and uncomfortable to face directly, no matter how well it is deliberately reframed or approached. But recognizing this specific pattern clearly for what it actually is, a completely normal, deeply human response to the anticipated pain of potential loss, rather than some sort of unique, deeply personal character flaw, can genuinely make it considerably easier to consciously and deliberately open that unread email, step confidently onto that scale, or finally schedule that long overdue appointment, well before the underlying situation has any further chance to quietly worsen. If this finally explains something you have personally been putting off, hit like, share it with someone who still has not checked their own results, and subscribe for more real psychology explained clearly.